chapter 16, page 71. 2 years later, Obierica paid another visit to his friend in exile. The circumstances were less happy. The missionaries had come to Umofia. They had built their church there, had won a handful of converts, and were already sending missionaries to the surrounding villages. That was a source of great sorrow to the leaders of the clan. But many believed the strange faith would not last. None of the converts was a man whose word was heeded. None was a man of title. They were mostly empty men of the clan, called Efulefu in the language of the clan. And Efulefu was a man who sold his machete and wore the sheath to battle. What moved Obierica to visit Okonkwo was the sudden appearance of Nyowe, Okonkwo's son, among the missionaries in Umofia. "What are you doing here?" Obierica had asked when he was finally allowed to talk to Nyowe. "I am one of them," replied Nyowe. "How is your father?" Obierica asked, not knowing what else to say. "I don't know. He is not my father," said Nyowe unhappily. When he heard this, Obierica went to Mabanta to see his friend. There he found that Okonkwo did not want to speak about Nyowe. It was only from Nyowe's mother that he heard scraps of the story. The missionaries had caused a stir in the village of Mabanta. There were 6, and one was a white man. Everyone came to see the white man. Stories about these strange men had grown since one had been killed in Abame. Everybody was at home. The harvest was over. And when they had gathered, the white interpreter began to speak. He spoke through an Igbo man, although his dialect was different. Many people laughed at the way he used words strangely. Instead of saying myself, he always said my buttocks. But he was a man of commanding presence. He said he was one of them, as they could see. The white man was also their brother because they were all sons of God. He told them about this new God, the creator of all the world and of men and women. He told them they worshipped false gods, and a deep murmur went through the crowd when he said this. He told them that when men died, they went before the true God for judgment, and those who bowed to false gods were thrown into a fire. But men who worshipped the true God lived forever in his happy kingdom. "Your buttocks understands our language," said someone lightheartedly, and the crowd laughed. "What did he say?" the white man asked the interpreter, and before he could answer, another man asked a question. "Where is the white man's horse?" The Igbo missionaries decided he probably meant his bicycle. They told the white man, and he smiled kindly. "Tell them that I shall bring many iron horses when we have settled down among them. Some of them will even ride an iron horse themselves." Few heard this. They were talking excitedly because the white man had said he was going to live among them. They had not thought about that. An old man asked, "Which is this God of yours? The goddess of the earth? The God of the sky, or what?" And the white man answered, "All the gods you named are not gods at all. They are gods of deceit who tell you to kill your fellows and destroy innocent children. There is only one true God. If we leave our gods, who will protect us from the anger of our neglected gods and ancestors? Your gods are not alive and cannot do you any harm," said the white man. "They are pieces of wood and stone." When this was interpreted, the men of Mabanta broke into laughter. "These men must be mad," they said to themselves. "How else could they say that an Ani was harmless?" And some of the men began to go away. Then the missionaries burst into song. It was a rollicking song that could pluck at silent chords in the heart of an Igbo man. The interpreter explained each verse to the audience, many of whom now stood enthralled. It was the story of brothers who lived in fear, ignorant of the love of God. And after the singing, the interpreter spoke about the Son of God, Jesu Christi. Okonkwo, who had only stayed in the hope that it might come to chasing the men out of the village or whipping them, said, "You told us there was only one God. Now you talk about his son? He must have a wife then." "I did not say he had a son," said the interpreter somewhat lamely. The missionary went on to talk about the Holy Trinity. And at the end, Okonkwo was convinced the man was mad. He shrugged his shoulders and went away. There was a young lad who had been captivated by the missionary's talk. His name was Nyoe. It was not the mad logic of the Trinity that captured him. It was the poetry of the new religion. The hymn about the brothers who sat in fear seemed to answer some vague questions he had. The question of the twins crying in the bush, and the question of Ikemefuna, who was killed. He felt a relief as the hymn poured into his parched soul. The words of the hymn were like drops of frozen rain melting on the dry, panting earth. Nyoe's immature mind was greatly puzzled.